In the previous video, we talked about how you can make the shape more interesting by making the shape out of other shapes instead of just tracing it like we did with the leaf. In this video, I'm going to continue on with that, and we're gonna finish making this watering can, doing the top and the handle and the bottom, and adding some detail to the spout. And let's keep going with that. So I'm going to start by working on the handle. So to do the handle, we could, just draw a line. And I also want to point out that I'm doing this on a separate layer. Let me just undo it so I can show you. I have layer 3 right here, so what I did was I locked the red layer, layer 2, and I did that so I can work on these new items without moving around the things on the second layer. So I'm going to keep going now on layer 3. So we could just make a line, right? It's not like we couldn't just get a line here, and if we hit the letter V, we can close the shape. We can not close the shape, but we can stop the shape. I want to point out to you that this shape right now, it might look like it's closed, but it's really open, and you can tell that it's open when I move it, because while these 2 points are connected by a green line, this part doesn't have a green line, and that just means that the shape is open. We typically like to have our shapes closed, but since this is just a line, it doesn't need to be closed. Right? So now if we were just making this handle out of a line, and we could make the stroke higher, and then if we turned off the watering can, we can see what it looks like. So that is definitely a handle. I just think we can make it a little more interesting. Let's turn that back off and let's delete this. So for some of your objects, using lines will be a lot easier than using shapes. So we have 2 things at our disposal. We could use lines or we could use shapes. Here I want to make this out of a shape, and I'm going to start by outlining this. I want it to be a thinner outline at this point because now we're going to be filling in the shape. And then we can just keep doing this. And I'm just trying to balance between not having too many points, but also not having too few points. I'm going to hit Option so I can change the trajectory of the line. Then I go here. And then I can keep going. So this part of the handle is definitely black, and we can see that. Well, not black, but it is the dark part. But then there's definitely a part, and now I'm going to close the shape. Now I can reverse that, and now it's closed. If we click away, we can see how our handle looks. It is a little rough. I'm going to just leave it without messing around with it too much to save on time. When you guys work on your own shapes, you should try to be more careful than I'm being right now. Or you can just fix things up. What I want to point out here is that there's definitely a white shape over here that we can emphasize. And I'm going to do it, instead of having a white shape here, I'm going to just use a line, and I think that'll be easier. I'm going to do that with the pen tool. And I want to show you that we can either do the line, we can do a whole line, and it doesn't need to be exactly the width that it is in reality. We can change it to what looks the best for us right now. I'm going to hit the letter V. I'm going to change this so now we want the fill to be nothing. We want the stroke to be white. We want the stroke to be black. Right? So this shows that we have this depth over here, that there's this white shape without us having to actually make a shape, which is nice because it saves us some work. But I think that we can also make it nice, and I want to show you how by showing you some of the settings on the stroke panel. So if you click stroke, this flyout comes out, and you can change what kind of stroke it is. Right now it's just a plain line with, it's the exact same weight the whole way through. See that this is a little twisty. I'm hitting the letter A to get the handles. I'm just gonna fix that. Okay, sorry. So let's go back to the line. If we open up the stroke panel again, we can change the stroke Do you see how now it's not, how it's closed, how it's sharp here, and then it's wide here, and then sharp at the end, and it mimics this shape. And it's clearer to see when you make the stroke higher. I'm going to turn that stroke down because I just want this to suggest it. And now something else I want to point out is we don't need this line to go all the way up. If we end the line over here, now I'm going to hit subtract. If we end the line there, we can still see where that line is going to. And we still see that depth. So now we have a more interesting handle. So I think that looks pretty good. Now let's work on the top over here. I think the top is just, well, we can use the rectangle tool. We don't need to use the pen tool. I think the top is just like the rest of it, which is white on one side and dark on the other. So let's make this whole shape white. And then I'm going to make a shape on top of that, which is black. And I'm going to make it a little bit wider than the dark side here. And now, cancel. Now, I'm going to use the direct selection tool. And I'm using the arrow like that. Now I think that we can define this shape over here a little bit better, and we can do that by using a black line. I'm going to select this. Well, we need to unlock layer 2. If I select this, I can now duplicate this shape. So I'm duplicating it by hitting Option while clicking this, and then I can drag that out. Now the problem with doing this is on top of there, it's going to be underneath it because it's on layer 2 and this shape is on layer 3, but we can just make it lower and then it won't be a problem. So we can just have it be right here. There we go. And now that shape has a little bit more definition. I'm going to make this thinner. Okay. Now we can do the bottom. We see that the bottom is a little bit rounded. So I'm going to make another, I think I'm going to use this shape again. We can just hit duplicate. Well, by hitting duplicate, what I really mean is we're hitting Option while selecting this object. So we can drag the object out, and by doing that, it's duplicated. Okay. And now I'm going to use I'm going to hit Shift C to get the convert anchor point. I'm just going to drag this down a little bit to get some depth on it. Okay, and now I just hit A to get the direct selection tool. So I can drag on this. Okay, and now I want to show you something else that's kind of neat. I'm going to duplicate this again. And now over here, this flips things vertically and horizontally. This will flip it horizontally, no, vertically, on the vertical edge. So now I have this line. We can get the anchor point tool back so we can drag this. I'm actually going to delete that. I'm so happy I showed you that because it's a pretty neat thing to do, and if you're making symmetric things, it's useful to have things that you can just flip. I'm going to just drag this white rectangle down using so I want the regular selection tool, and I want this to just go all the way down so it's covered. And now I'm going to make a shape here. I want to make this shape over here, so I'm going to do that. And for that, where did my line go? Well, you know what? I must have dragged something. I must have deleted it. Let's just duplicate this and get it back. We don't typically like for that to happen, but you know, just got it back. So now I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to flip it vertically. The reason why that's okay to do is because I didn't change the anchors. I didn't change the line to be curved yet. Now I'm going to curve this line a little bit, hitting Shift C. And I want this line to, I think I want this line to go all the way down. But I don't want it to go all the way. I really only want it to go up to here. So I'm going to add points over here by hitting plus. That warning came up because I didn't hit the line itself. Now I'm going to subtract these points. I subtracted the wrong point. Let me subtract. Let me just make sure that I subtract the right point. That point's going to get subtracted and that one's going to get subtracted. Now I want to fix these handles. And I need to fix this handle. There we go. Let me just show you something quick about the difference between subtracting and subtracting and deleting. So here's a circle, right? If I subtract one of the points, I'm going to make this color green so we can see the red lines clearly. So I just subtracted that point. So this shape is still very much whole. But let's say I delete a point, and to delete a point, I select the point and then I hit delete. Now I've opened the shape. So subtracting and deleting are two different things. Okay, so now I have my basic shape. I still want to, I think it'd be nice to add a little bit of detail to this spout. So what I want to do to add some details, I'm just going to use the ellipse tool. I'm going to do lock layer 2 and do this on layer 3. I'm going to make some tiny little spouts, some tiny little points, and I'm going to make them black. And I'm going to fix this shape because I want it to be on the same angle as the rest of it. So I need to zoom in really because this is a very tiny shape. Here we go. And I think that this might make it, to see exactly where I want this to fit, I need to add a colored stroke just to see. We can make it really a very thin stroke. Because I just want to see what angle my holes should be at. And I think that's good. Now I can make my holes. So these holes are for the spout. Because spouts have those holes so the water can come out. I just need to zoom in a lot. And now I can duplicate it, get a bunch in there. So I'm just holding Option and dragging, and you'll see, and this way I can just get some of these holes, and I think that makes it a little bit easier. Now if I lock that, I can select a bunch of these at the same time. Now I can duplicate this entire line. Now I've made 3 at a time. Gonna duplicate some more. Can duplicate all of them. And we can just keep doing that until we're happy with how many we have. And then we can move them around afterwards. Like everything else, things are movable. It makes it a lot easier because then you never have to get anything right the first time. So we can delete some of these if we don't like them. We can just move them to where we want them to be. We are not tied to anything in Illustrator. We can also just get rid of them in its entirety if we decide we think they look too crowded. But adding details like these can make it a little more interesting. You don't need to add too many details because as long as we can tell what it is, and now I'm going to unlock this, and let's get rid of this stroke. What we want to be able to do is just tell what our object is. But sometimes the extra details make it a little more interesting. And these circles help us understand the surface of this spout.